Button. Voiceover off.
This is Mathematics Talk, Algebra 1, Lesson 1. Today, we're going to work on quadratic equations and how to solve them. For example, b squared minus 4ac times 4x to the third power. How are we going to solve it? We're going to look at the slope first, then we're going to graph. Same thing as distributive property. For example, 2x squared plus 4x minus 4x plus 3. Distribute and combine like terms. Which numbers or x's or y's can combine with these numbers? I'm going to give you 15 seconds to guess. If one of you get it right, you get a surprise. Whoever got it right will actually get to see my schoolroom. Anyways, there can be y equals bx plus c or bx plus ac, or it can be y equals b squared plus minus abc. And b squared minus 4ac, there we go. That's what I was thinking about. There can be b squared minus 4ac times the third power of y to the third x times the fourth power. It's kind of like the ABCs equaling 1, 2, or 3. Is this a standard form if you're doing b squared minus 4ac? The answer is no. If you said no, you got it correct. This is not a standard form. The solutions are not going to be real. They're going to be imaginary. So you want to pretend that there's a 1 in front of that x or that number. Another example. I'm going to talk about squares now. Squares. Like 2 squared. Or 2x squared. This means of multiplying the x times the x. So it can be 2 squared. It's going to equal 4. Or 2x squared. And you add that, it's going to be 4. Like 2x times 4x. You got to think about that. Because when you look at the x, you're multiplying it. And what just happened there? 2x times 4x. What's 2 times 4? This will give you an example. If you add 2 times 4, what does that give you? 8, exactly. Or they can be squared. Like 1 over 2 times the third power with a fraction on it. Or x divided by 2.5x times y equals 2x to the third power. Because, sometimes there ain't no number in front of x. So, you better think about this. The y-intercept. I'm going to give you an example. If you are at 0, and then you go up 50, but then you find a line, you find that dots for blind and visually impaired. That's the y-intercept. That's where it stops at. So, you want to look around carefully. Then there's 100. And then you go 50 more. To the right one. And there's your line again. So count how many in the y-axis there is. If you got 100, you're correct. If you got 50, there's more work to do for you. You gotta add 50 more to the y-axis to get the x answer. And for example, x equals 50x squared times the third power. But if x equals 0 and everything equals 0, it's its own self. For example, 1 divided by itself, it's going to equal itself. 0 divided by 0 equals 0. Now I'm going to show you something a bit tricky. Absolute value. The absolute value is the distance What was I going to say? I'm going to shut my door for a minute. Then I'm going to explain to you what this is. The absolute value is the distance between 0, like the distance between positive and the distance between negative. For example, the absolute value of 4x minus 5 equals negative 5. What's the distance? What's the distance between that? If you math teachers are listening to this, you can also try to figure this out. So what are the distance between 0? Are we going negative or are we going positive? We're going negative, yes. Now, Pythagorean theorem. Give me a triangle. Give me two sides. Use the Pythagorean theorem that you can try to find. And there are your variables. And now you have 3. And then you can try to look for the C. Are you looking for the C? I'm going to show you how to find it. This is where you're going to find it at. Right across from the 90 degrees. Like, for example, angle 3 triangle equals 90 degrees. But if there's a leg missing, you have to, solve it a harder way. You square it, you subtract it, then the last step is take the square root. That's the last step, is take the square root of that number, or the triangle, or the leg that is missing. There can be 2 legs in this equation that you can solve, or there can be legs missing, like a leg that's missing in an equation. Like, there's only a right triangle on this leg. Like, angle 4 triangle on one side equals negative 3 degrees. That can be a negative. That's a pretty tricky equation right there. So what numbers did you get in this Pythagorean theorem mathematics lesson? Use the numbers or the equation to figure this answer out. So what's the slope in this equation? Try this. X minus 5y equals negative 30. What's the slope in that? So what are we doing? Are we going positive or are we going negative? If you say negative, then you were probably right. Because when I went to my home school district visit, we learned x minus 5y equals negative 30, if I can remember. If you go on x minus 5y, you're going negative. Because minus is a negative. It's not positive numbers. So what I would suggest is that you look at your slope. You graph the equation in the calculator. Then when you look at this, then you might know how to solve it. Or I can give you another example. 3x minus 5y times 5y equals 21. So, we're going to go positive, and there can be fractions. Like, for example, 4 over 5 equals 21x. Don't get me wrong, I'm just trying to train you the best as I can. Even though I'm not that good at algebra, I'm just trying my best, guys, to train you. Just want to tell you that in case I'm wrong. But anyways, if you use that as an example, 4 over 5 equals 26x squared. How are you going to get it? You need a decimal. I'm serious, you need a decimal. Or if you put b squared minus 4ac equals 4 times x to the 3rd power. Or a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That's a Pythagorean theorem right there. Pythagorean theorem is the kind you use on a squared plus b squared equals c squared. That's the Pythagorean theorem type of trigonometry lesson. There can be algebra in it. A squared plus b squared equals c squared times yx to the 3rd power. Angle 3 triangle 4 equals 10x. So what are we going to do there? Are you going to solve for y or are you going to solve for x? So we're going to have to figure this out in equations by negative numbers. This is very important, guys. If you want to be a math teacher, you have to know this stuff. Because what I learned from a video, Pythagorean theorem, is trigonometry. You can learn this in Algebra 1 a little bit. Like, for example, a squared plus b squared equals c squared could be the intro. Look at the lines and the shape of this triangle right here. When you see this triangle on the right side only, there's something missing. What is it? That's right. Whoever got it is correct. So what is your answer? That is correct. Because you know me, guys, I love algebra. Even though I'm maybe not good at it, I'm just trying my best to train you guys. Have a teacher email me. And then talk to you guys later. Goodbye.
Voiceover on. Use finish button. Finish. Lip finish button. Finish.